Point-slope form. When given a point and a slope, we may find a linear equation, and this equation is called point-slope form. So if we want to know how to do this, we take a point and a slope. The point is x subscript 1, comma y subscript 1, and the slope is going to still be m as it has been in the past. Alright, so my formula is y minus y subscript 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x subscript 1. So this is going to be the equation that we are going to be starting out with as we progress through this lesson. Okay, so now we're going to do an example where we write an equation in point-slope form. So we have a line that passes through -3, 6, and a slope of -5. So I'm going to write that as x sub 1, x sub 1 is my first number of the point, the x position, so I'm going to write -3. My y sub 1 is equal to the thing in the y position, which is this 6, so y sub 1 equals 6. And then my slope is my m, and that is the -5, so m equals -5. Now I just put this into my formula. So, to remind myself of the formula, y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. So I put in the numbers I know. My x sub 1 is going to go in with the x sub 1. My y sub 1 is going to go in with the y sub 1. And my m is going to go in where the m is. So my equation is going to be y minus my y sub 1 term, which I put in the 6, because y sub 1 equals 6, equals my m, which is the -5, times the quantity x minus my x sub 1, which is -3. Okay, so now I want to simplify this because negative can be simplified. So y minus 6 equals -5 times the quantity x plus 3. Now this one you don't have to simplify because I wanted you to write it in point-slope form, which is right there. So we have another example here. A line passes through the point 8, -4 and has a slope of 2/3. What is an equation of this line? So we have my x1 term, which is the first number in the point, so that would be 8. We have our y1 term, which is the second number in our point, which is the -4. We have the m, which is our slope, and the m, the slope of 2/3. So 2/3. And now I put it into my equation. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So when I'm solving, I have y minus whatever my y1 is equals my m times my x minus whatever my x is. So I just have to fill in those points, those numbers there. So my x1 goes with my x, and that is 8. So my x1 goes there. And then my y1 goes here, and that is -4. And then finally my m goes here, and that is 2/3. So now when I simplify this, I have a double negative here. So y plus 4 equals 2/3 x minus 8. And that is your final answer in point-slope form. In these next couple examples, we want to graph using point-slope form. So how we're going to do that is find our point, and find our slope. Well, slope is m equals something, so we need to do that. And then find the point, which is going to be x1, y1. So those are the things that we need to find. So when we are looking at this equation, we should match it up with our y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Okay, so what matches up with what? That's what we're looking at. My y1 is going to be equal to the thing that matches up with it. And since they're both minus, it matches up with exactly what it is. So y1 equals 1. And then the other part is my x1. Again, both minus, minus. So my x1 is going to be 2. x1 equals 2. So I can match up my point now as 2, 1. And make sure you put the 2 first because x comes before y. And then my slope is the last part there. And the slope is whatever is outside the parentheses. So that is 2/3. So m is 2/3. Now if I want to graph this, it's not so bad. All I have to do is graph the point. Then you count the slope. Okay, so very similar to what we've done before. So we graph our point, which is 2, 1, 2, and positive 1 goes up 1. And then we count our slope. What I mean by that is rise over run. So I'm going to go from that point there. I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2, rise 2, and run 3, 1, 2, 3. So my other point is right there. And then I can connect those 2 points and draw a line through them. And that is your graph. So another example of this same thing, we have y1 minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So first thing we want to look for is, well, we can find my m because it's whatever's outside the parentheses. So m is equal to negative 4 over 5. So that's the easy part. Then we have to figure out our x1, which is whatever's matched up with the x. Okay, so we check to make sure that everything is negative, and if it's not, we have to think about what we have to do. So those are both negative, so that means x1 equals 4. Positive 4. Alright, and now y1. Okay, so this one might be a little bit more tricky. What we have to do is check to make sure they're both negative. This one is not negative, so I need to change it to a negative to make it y minus negative 7, because it just changes the positive to a negative. It's still the same idea. Now we are of the form y minus y1 equals m x minus x1 in parentheses, and we have y minus negative 7 equals negative 4 over 5 x minus 4. Okay, so we already took care of the slope, and we already took care of the x1. And now we match up. We have double negative, so we match them up, and y1 equals negative 7. So what this implies here is that my point is 4, negative 7. So that's the information you need. Now if I graph this, 4, negative 7, is right there. and then I'm going to go down 4 and over 5. So this one's going to be kind of hard to see because going down 4 would be down to negative 11 and over 5. So I would go down 4 and over 5, or you can go up 4 and backwards 5. It's the same thing. It's going to create the same line. But that's the idea on how to graph that one. Alright, so for this next example, the table is going to show the altitude of a hot air balloon during its linear descent. I want to know what the equation is in slope-intercept form that gives this balloon's altitude at any given time. And then we should be able to explain what the slope and y-intercept represent. Okay, so to find slope-intercept form, I want to find my slope. And since this is a line, we were told it was linear, so we can use any points we want. So I'm just going to use 10 and 640 and 30 and 590. So when I find my m, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2, this is from before, so I put in what I know. If my altitudes are my y's and my time is my x's, and then I'm going to go 640 minus 590 over 10 minus 30. So make sure you match them up. This is y1 over here, x1, x2, y2. Be careful of how you're doing that. And then that's going to be 50 over negative 20. And when I simplify that, I'll just get a negative 5 over 2. And I want to leave that as a fraction because then it'll be easier for me to graph if I ever had to graph it. So now I have my m. So now I can pick one of those points, or any one of these points, and then put it into point slope form. So point slope form is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. So before we just called this my x1 point, so I'm going to just use this point right here and put in what I know. So I know y minus my y1 is 640 equals my m, which I found my m down here to be negative 5 over 2 x minus my x1, which is 10. Now this is point slope form. But what I wanted was slope-intercept form. So we got to go one more step and simplify all this. So the next thing to do would be to distribute, and I get y minus 640 equals negative 5 over 2 times x, and then when I take 5 over 2 times negative 10, I get a positive 25. And then I just solve for y, because slope-intercept form says solve for y. So my last step, add 640 to both sides, giving me y equals negative 5 over 2 x plus 665. So that is slope-intercept form. So make sure you're careful on what I'm asking you to give me, slope-intercept form or point-slope form. Okay, they are different. Now, what do the slope and y-intercept represent? The slope, since it is a negative number, that means the hot air balloon is going down at a rate of 5 meters per second. And the y-intercept means that the starting altitude is 665 meters in the air. That's what slope and intercept represent. So those are your notes over point slope form. Go over the practice problems, and then you should be ready for the quiz over this material. Make sure you actually do some of the practice problems, because this is kind of confusing if you are just learning how to do this.